When we consult the dictionary, the word call is defined as speaking in a loud voice to be heard at a distance. This week, our attention is focused on this very concept. The parsha of the week is Vayikra, which translates to, and he called. Interestingly, Vayikra is also the name of the entire third book of the Torah, which we begin reading this week in Shul. Additionally, during the Maftir reading the Shabbos, we will loudly proclaim the mitzvah to eliminate Amalek in Parsha Zachor. Our ability to use our voices and call out is akin to a raw power. Like any power, it can be harnessed for good or misused. Recently, a friend and I engaged in a discussion about current events in Israel. Amidst our conversation, we delved into the prominent calls for an immediate ceasefire. However, I couldn't help but wonder, and I asked him, why have we not been incessantly bombarded with voices demanding the immediate and unconditional surrender of Hamas? Where is the daily call for this from U.S. and other world leaders? Why have people found their ability to call out only when it is to demand Israel stop their war of self-defense? Of course, he responded by saying that indeed it is most certainly said and not as seldomly as I'm making it out to be. But this is precisely what grabbed my attention when studying this week's Parsha, the difference between saying and calling. The Torah is replete with the verse, and God said to Moses. But this week is different. This week it's, and he called to Moses. It's a much more powerful communication. Embedded in this is love and admiration. It's not the regular, normal way of speech. Calling is a sign of passion. It shows where one's emotional investment lies, and it comes across vividly to the one listening. This past Sunday, we heard Danielle DeVere share her moving story of escape and rescue from the Nova Music Festival on October 7th. When she speaks, she communicates a passion for life. One cannot help but realize the stark difference between the Jews living in Israel and the terrorists who infiltrated through on that morning. We champion life and we are passionate about it. They champion death and are passionate about it. On Sunday, we're going to celebrate Purim, the miraculous salvation of the Jewish people from Amalek's descendant named Haman. Back then, the Jewish people were just as smart and opinionated as we are today. Leading up to Haman's rise to power, I'm sure there were very, very heated debates on what would be the best political positioning and strategic approach for the Jewish people. But after Haman got the king to issue a decree of Jewish extermination on Yud Gimel Adar, the 13th of Adar, there were no differences. The enemy used his ugly voice to call out his mission of Jewish annihilation. We dropped all our different views and we all united together under the leadership of Mordechai. In unison, we turned our hearts toward God and used our sweet and sincere voice to call out to Almighty God. We had to fight to defend ourselves, and it was very bloody, but we remained united in one loud voice until the threat was long gone and far removed. Today, as we speak, sadly, the threat is still alive. 1,200 have been murdered in cold blood, and the threat of more Jewish death is sadly alive and kicking. The enemy isn't even ashamed to say it publicly. We cannot allow the nations of the world and outside pundits to drive a wedge between us and divide us. Please don't allow the voice of pundits and so-called experts who have the luxury of sitting thousands of miles away in peace and security to confuse you, to call out in two distinct voices. We must remain in one singular, powerful voice for the sake of all civilian life. We demand the immediate surrender of the terrorist group Hamas and the return of all hostages immediately. Failure to do so will prolong the war and sadly cause more bloodshed. Jewish diaspora must continue to put aside political differences, and Vayikra we must call out in one singular voice in support for a total victory over our enemies. For the sake of human life, we must continue to remain in one singular powerful voice demanding from Almighty God for the immediate end to this bitter exile and the return of His revealed glory to this world forever. I wish you a good Shabbos and a happy Purim.